Napa know-how.
A Napa guy knows more isn't always better, unless we're talking about full-size vans. These beasts do more than get you from A to B. They have so much space a man can live in it. With shag carpeting, waterbed, and a sweet lava lamp, these mobile abodes have all the comforts of home. With quality parts and plenty of Napa know-how, you can keep the original tiny house running longer, stronger. That's Napa know-how.
Napa know-how.
Blog Talk Radio.
Once in a lifetime does a great author set the stage for a wonderful trip into the minds and lives of their characters. Yvonne Mason doesn't just write books, she crafts memorable experiences. Best-selling true crime fiction author Yvonne Mason will leave you on the edge of your seat and checking behind every corner for the weirdos that only real life can bring. Find her books on Amazon.com and make sure you check out such titles like Dreamcatcher, Failure Was Never an Option, The Pink Canary, and Silent Scream today.
Well, hello, ladies and gentlemen. This is Yvonne Mason, and this is Off the Chain. That was a piece of shameless promotion. Y'all know by now I do that. That was my ad man, Chris Dunham, and if you want an ad done, go on my Facebook page, look up Christopher Dunham, and contact him. He is absolutely amazing. He knows how to bring an ad alive. It is Thursday night, and I am so excited. Things have been happening like crazy around here, operating on about 48 hours of no sleep. So if I fumble for my words or I mispronounce things, just as y'all know, those of you that have listened to this show before, just laugh with me and go on, because when I get tired, I get stupid. So we'll just roll with that one. And as I'm prone to do every day, because I am a numbers person, I believe in numbers because numbers never lie. It's the person behind them, but numbers themselves do not lie. And I had a dream that we would do this show 5 years ago, and the dream became real in July of last year. We're not even a year old yet, ladies and gentlemen. July the 27th will be a year old. And I thought, well, if I get 5,000 listeners, I will have achieved something, because my guest will have been put out there. They will have been heard by people they haven't been heard by before, and it gives them exposure. Little did I realize, ladies and gentlemen, that when I started this show, it would take on its own life form, and that people would come to me and say, I want to be on your show. I want to be on your show. When can I be on your show? Ladies and gentlemen, I am booked up until the middle of September. I'm almost booked up for the end of September. I'm looking for guests for October, November, and December. And the beautiful thing is, the success of the show is not because of me. It not at all. The success of the show is because of my guest and the ones that come on here and the ones that agree to come back more than once because they still haven't finished telling their story, which, as my guest and I were talking about before the show went live, this is a journey, and I'm having so much fun on this journey, and I hope my guests are. This morning, when I ran the numbers, just on the show alone, we're at 7,417 listeners. When you add that to all the podcasts that this show goes up on, we are at 16,703 listeners. We're only 4,000 listeners away from the 20,000. I'm in awe. I am humbled. I am proud. I am grateful, and I appreciate every guest I have, and I certainly appreciate all of the listeners, whether you listen to the live show, whether you listen to it in archives, whether you listen to it on a podcast as you're going down the road or sitting in a doctor's office or waiting on your child at school. I am so grateful for each and every one of you. You have no idea the journey and the dream that all of y'all have helped make real. And tonight we continue the journey. My guest tonight is Martha. I told y'all I can't talk. Martha Carr. She is the author of 9 books, including the Wallace Jones series, a 6-part thriller series that starts with the List conspiracy. Now, remember what I just said, a 6-part thriller series. We'll get into that in a little while. The entire series is available on Amazon and in Kindle Unlimited. She has written a weekly, nationally syndicated column on world affairs and life that has run on such political hotspots as theModerateVoice.com and Politicus.com. Her work has run regularly in such venerable publications as the Washington Post, the New York Times, USA Today, the Wall Street Journal, and the Chicago Tribune and Newsweek. This woman is absolutely amazing, and when we get into her story, y'all will just sit there and go, I can't believe it. No wonder she writes such wonderful, wonderful books. So without further ado, welcome, Martha. I am so glad you're on this show.
Thank you, Yvonne. That's a really wonderful introduction. Thank you very much.
Well, it's sincere because I was, as I am prone to do before my guests arrive, I do my homework on them. I was a bounty hunter before I moved to Florida, and so
wow.
Of course, at 411, people go, "You were what?" But yeah, and so I go and find people, and I find the things that most people wouldn't find out because they wouldn't take the time to do their homework, and I find these little nuggets of gold that I want to bring out to the listening audience because, like you and I were talking about before the show, you're the brand, not your book. So when they get to know Martha, they're going to run out and buy that book, the whole series at one whack, I guarantee it.
Thank you.
You are welcome. So let's just start at the beginning. How did you get here?
Well, you know, I was born into an old Virginia family where they tell you who you're related to from the moment you can understand what they're saying. And that's my father's side of the family, and they were always telling me that I am Thomas Jefferson's great-great-great-great niece, named for his sister. So it kind of starts there where you're interested in politics. And I grew up outside of Washington, D.C., so that's the company business. And I always liked watching. It's like watching a game where you don't know all of the backstory, but you can guess it if you watch the different pieces. And I found that to be fun.
When you were young and in school, were you active in school politics or active in local politics or read a lot of politics?
I was actually active. I was actually active in politics, and I learned how to have a voice that way. So really, for me, was I learned two things: how to have a voice and how to compromise, and that the other side probably had something to add that would make my position even stronger. And that's a very valuable thing to learn, to listen as if your mind can be changed. And I was very fortunate. I grew up in an era where there was far less bipartisanship, and you got to watch people do what was right, and based on what was right, instead of standing hard on the line just to stand there. And then, as a teenager, I was very fortunate. My older sister knew Susan Ford and got a job at the White House selling tourist books as a teenager. And then when she graduated from high school, my mother made her pass the job to me. So my very first job in the world was standing in the North Portico of the White House selling tourist books.
And I'm sure that you got to see things that most of us, and see things and people that most of us see from afar. You got to see it up close and personal.
Yes, and you're right. That was extremely informative, because what I really got to see was that everybody is just an ordinary human being once you get to know them. And some people have just decided to devote their life to service. And when politics is done right, that's what it is. And so I got to understand that to be successful in politics, you have to look at the bigger picture. and then understand the machinations behind it in order to accomplish your goal. And that you aren't going to do it alone, you're going to do it in community. No successful politician can do things alone. Yeah.
That is true, because, and sadly, what some of them have forgotten is it's not about them, it's about the community.
Exactly. You know, when I was growing up, Tip O'Neill was the Speaker of the House for years and years, and he, you know, clearly the majority would change from Republican to Democrat, and yet they would keep him as the Speaker of the House because they recognized that he was very good at it. And so it wasn't about beating any particular drum. And you may not agree completely with the guy across the aisle, but you knew occasionally you were going to have to walk over and say hello. So there were friendships. I also, by the way, saw that too. There's in the Wallace Jones series, I even used the Navy dining room that's in the White House, because that's, as kids, we got to go in there. Well, I was a teenager. Just, you know, we were the two kids of the White House. I got to go in there and get ice cream sometimes, and I would see Bob Dole having breakfast. You know, there was mingling across party lines. They'd be sitting together. They weren't enemies. They would talk to each other.
And I'm sure that they privately semi-agreed on more things than they disagreed on.
That's probably
and they
true.
were
right.
and they were probably more willing to, as you say, compromise in order to get what was best for the country as opposed to what was best for their own little corner of the world.
Right. Well, you know, they were very good at it. The best politicians were very good at not losing sight of their absolute core value and knowing what to trade in order to accomplish that goal. I mean, Bob Dole, I think, represented Kansas, and he was extremely good at remembering what Kansas in particular needed, or any other politician. It's not like they lost sight of who elected them individually, but they didn't. They just were. They knew what they could accomplish and what they were going to have to let go of, and so there wasn't this absolute need to be right. It was more about how do I get this done so that we can move ahead.
Instead of being a gridlock.
Yes, instead of being a gridlock. Gridlock was not. It seems like gridlock now is something we've come to accept as a constant, and it really rarely happened in the past when I was growing up. And also, I grew up in Virginia, and I'd watched the Old Boy. I grew up inside the Old Boy Network, and I saw how efficiently it worked, and how if you were on the inside, it really did open doors, and if you were on the outside, it was just a little tougher. And I wanted to use that to start this series, and I just started to create a conspiracy on a low level, and then grew it out into a nice giant one, into an epic thriller. It's fun.
Well, is that how you got involved in writing for all these wonderful publications?
Well, you know, I grew up in Alexandria, Virginia. So I saw the Washington Post as my local paper, and I'm not sure I understood that it was the Washington Post. And I was just so dying to be a journalist that I just started writing, and I got very fortunate that they started taking my pieces, and I became a stringer for them. And it was luck and desire and hard work and a willingness to take direction and not take editors personally. You know, if you really, really want something and you'll go to any means necessary and you don't make it about you, I think you're going to get there. I mean, my degree is actually in psychology because I didn't know what to study, frankly. And I knew I wanted to be a writer, but no one in my family thought it was a good idea. So I was kind of a late bloomer in some ways. And then for me, writing became my voice. And I tend to be somewhat shy, and people who are listening to this who know me are now choking on their coffee. But I learned, I really started to learn to have a voice by writing. And then when I saw that things didn't fall apart just because I had a voice, I learned it's kind of like speaking came second and writing was first. And then I realized, you write a book and the public tells you what it was really about. And when you hear it, you think, oh, my God, that was what I was writing about. And you learn things about yourself, and it kind of changes things forever.
Well, let me ask you this. With your degree in psychology, did that help you have and the terminology I'm fixing to use is not really the right terminology, but it's the best I can come up with at this point in time. Did it help you have a better understanding of the environment that you were writing about?
Absolutely. And so I wrote 6 books. They're one long epic story. It's 500,000 words of a very twisted tale that uses a lot of current events that all the events in there actually happened, so I gathered them from all over the world, and it gave me the chance to really twist around how people would behave in certain situations, not only to their detriment, but how people can actually rise to the occasion. And so I was also using this theme of community. When we come together, we've seen it before. We came together about South Africa and refused to allow investments that were in South Africa, and apartheid died without a single bullet being shot. And
that's true.
And yes, there were a lot of people who died during apartheid, but at the end of it, there was no war. And so we have that capability. It's amazing. And we also have the ability to turn on each other. So the main character is a woman. She's a very strong woman who thinks that she knows how to get things done. And then she finds herself in the middle of a large conspiracy, and she's not going to be able to fix this instantly, at least. And she can't even grasp what's going on. And that can be a hard place to be if you've always felt like your life was going okay and you knew what you were doing. When you suddenly find that's not going to be the case anymore, it takes a certain amount of inner faith or courage and vulnerability to reach out to others and say, I'm not sure how this is going to turn out, but I'm going to need you.
And you also have to learn who to trust and who not to trust.
You also have to learn to go ahead and trust sometimes when you're not sure you should, because you don't have any other choice.
That is
it's
very
tricky.
true. And it's a fine line. It's like walking on a tightrope, and that's true even in life. What is the old adage? The enemy of your enemy is my friend.
My enemy is my friend. Yes. And also sometimes those people who love you do things that are really wounding, and you have to be able to say, I'm going to let this go. I'm not going to turn this into a thing. We're going to keep working together, and that's great.
And that is extremely true, Martha, because we as human beings have a tendency to hold grudges and not forgive and move on, forgetting the fact that we are flawed as well. And when we hold that grudge and don't forgive, we're only hurting ourselves. We're missing out on so much. Right.
I always say it's like setting yourself on fire and hoping the smoke bothers the other guy.
And they've already come down the street somewhere. They could care less.
Yeah, they could care less, right? And also, I remind myself all the time that when I hold a grudge, I am looking toward the past, because you can't hold a grudge unless you're staring at the past. And I'm forgetting to look toward the future and imagine what could be in the place of that grudge that could grow my own life more if I can let go.
That is very, very wise words and so true. And when you bring the past into your present, you stand still because you can't go anywhere else, because it's like a ball and chain wrapped around your leg.
Right. You're going to make decisions based on this hurt you think you have, and it's going to affect what you're willing to do. I'm collaborating on a new series right now with another author, and in order to do that, I have to be willing to compromise on a daily basis and know that that's actually a good idea. And it's a lot of fun. It's a new muscle. Oh, yeah, because they have ideas. It's not maybe what I thought of first. And instead of letting that voice go, wait a minute, instead I say, okay, let's try it, because why not?
You're only growing your intellect. You're only growing your brand, your vision. You're stepping out of your comfort zone. It doesn't get any better than that.
Absolutely. And also I'm finding out that I don't have to do everything, that I don't have to know everything, and that I can contribute my part and mix it with someone else's, and we'll come up with something entirely different. My ego's not wrapped up in it. And so I no longer have anything left to prove. So this can just be, a journey where let's just try it. And writing an epic thriller of 500,000 words is really like, what was I thinking? And it was fun. So I'm thrilled I did. Yeah. I'm thrilled I did it. It was a ton of research. I have an old friend who used to be with the NSA, and he was very kind to answer endless questions. And I did a lot of research as well. So I don't know that I'll ever do another series like the Wallace Jones series because it was so intense. But I'm awfully glad I did it.
Well, and it took you to places that you might not have gone. And it also, it taught you, I know when I research books for my historical fictions or my true crimes, I learned so much more than I thought that I ever could, because one thing leads to another, and then you pull a little bit from here and a little bit from there. And when I was in school, I could have cared less about the Civil War because it was dry when they taught it. Well, when I started researching it for a book, I couldn't get enough of it.
Right, yeah, family against family. I mean, the Civil War was like nothing else. It's still the war that killed more people, I think, than more Americans than World War II, World War I, and Vietnam combined, I think is what they always say. Or all the wars we've been in combined.
It wasn't just the war itself, it was all of the little tentacles that were repercussions of the war. And I'm thinking, why didn't I study this in school? Why didn't they teach me all of this in school? And I'm sure when you were doing your series, you're saying the same thing. Wow.
Oh, yeah. And also because I base it on current events, some of which I can't say right now because it'll give away too much in the book. But when I was researching it, I was thinking, wow, because you can't believe this is going on right under your nose, and we're not paying attention to it, and what will it mean later that we didn't pay attention? But I also learned, I talk a lot now about community and how important it is to really work on having your own local community. But, frankly, I really came to understand that from doing this series. It's funny how writing a thriller series got me to really appreciate the people around me that I see as family, who are friends.
And then now we come back to the thing you and I talked about before the show, about how much power there is in books.
Oh, right. Yes. Love this topic. I was 5 years old, and we were really kind of poor when I was a kid. And by kind of, I mean we're poor. And I remember the first time we went to a library, it was in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. And, they said, my dad said we could take as many books as we could carry. And I really needed confirmation more than once that as many books as we could carry. And then once you read them, we could come back and get more. And I had never been to something like that. I mean, we couldn't buy anything casually, ever. So to be told, you could get these wonderful things with these pictures, and I was an early reader, and so that's where the love affair started. And then when I was 9, my father used to drop the 3 youngest of us off at the movies, and he dropped us off when I was in 4th grade by accident at a Vincent Price triple feature horror. Remember Vincent Price?
Ooh, yes, I love Vincent Price.
I did too, but I was only 9. And in those days, his horror pictures were considered like, I mean, they'd probably be kind of cheesy now, but they were seriously horror then. And my sister and brother waited in the lobby. They refused to leave, but I knew that we wouldn't get to go to another movie. So I sat through all 3, and it was Halloween, and our teacher asked us to write a story on Halloween, and mine was full of everything I'd learned from Vincent Price. And so then my father was called in because they were worried that something had gone terribly wrong with me. He had to explain that he let his 9-year-old sit through a Vincent Price triple horror feature. And so the writer was born. I was sitting there writing a horror thriller, and to this day, I think it was pretty good.
Well, and the love of being able. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I understand where Martha's coming from, because like her, I learned to read real early. 5 years old before I started to school. So by the time I got in school, we were reading C, Dick, and Jane, and I was bored with it because I was already at the end of the book by the time the rest of the class got to the 3rd page. And like you, to be able to go to the library and check out books, and not primary books, but books that had
anything you wanted.
Yeah. The one librarian told me that I couldn't check out books in the big kid section because I was only a little kid. I had to go back to the little kid section. I said, I don't think so.
And you know, if you're a poor kid and you haven't seen a whole lot, books tell you about a world that you haven't known before that maybe you can become a part of, and suddenly the world seems like a very rich, wonderful place. And you read about other poor kids who suddenly became something. It just changes your entire life. That's
true. It does. And it gives a feeling of power in the fact that you're learning new words, you're learning about new places, you're learning about new cultures, even in fiction. You're learning about new languages, you're learning about history. And all of a sudden you have all this knowledge that you can carry on a conversation with someone and know what you're talking about.
Right, and it starts a love of learning. It really does start a love of learning and a curiosity about facts and how things work. And I was a little, nerd girl from day one. My oldest sister was really into Star Trek and DC Comics, and I followed right behind her. And I loved creating complex board games and treasure hunts for my little brother. And the reading just played right into it. And my father was such a big fan of books that my mother would tell him, you cannot buy another book. And he'd sneak them in his sleeve. And so books were piled and books were, she knew he was doing it too. Books were piled everywhere. And so there was this understanding that the world was a friendly, welcoming place with a lot of cool things going on that you could choose from. You just had to get out there and try. And so, yeah, most of my family thought being a writer was kind of a dumb idea because you'd end up penniless. But I had this one cousin, Virginia Stabney, who won a Pulitzer, and he took one of his books and wrote to a great writer before I'd written anything. And he knew, as the patriarch of the whole clan, that they would back off if he did that. And so I just decided I was going to keep going until I got there. I was just going to keep writing. And it really, for me, gave me a voice more than anything. It gave me, and when people, I would write things for the Washington Post, and people would send in emails by the hundreds And when you realize that you write something that really comes from your heart, and other people's hearts open up and they see things differently, I mean, that's, what more can you say?
It's power. Because not
in
only
the most
have
wonderful way.
Yes, because not only have you imparted your knowledge and your opinions and your feelings, but you've embraced other people's. So it was a win-win. You learned, they learned. You had a discourse and a communication, and like you said, you listened, hoping they could persuade you, but most times than not, it only reiterated your stand.
Well, I do try to listen as if my mind can be changed, and what I find often is that where I am can be enhanced, and I don't have the need to be right, so I am willing to listen, and sometimes I find out there's more to the story, and that only makes it more interesting. And frankly, that's Wallace Jones is a woman, is the main character, and she finds out that trying to be right is just not worth it. You push people away. And so sometimes these ideas that we have that we think, this has gotten me this far, you just need to always be able to listen to somebody. And it takes vulnerability and trust and faith. And sometimes in the darkest times, you really don't have that. And yet you got to dig down deep enough and just do it anyway.
And we were talking before the show about what is more important, to be right or to be happy.
Right.
And can you be happy in the midst of conflict? Tell the audience about the story you told me about your father and the prayer and the Common Prayer book, because this.
In the book of Common Prayer.
Yes.
Yes. So my late father was an Episcopal minister, and he is one of his most prized possessions was a book of Common Prayer owned by a Civil War soldier, a young man, and the young man had written all over the book, and he dated prayers and circled them in written notes. And my father knew what battle he had died in, and it was a battle where the young man had to have known that death was imminent. They lost in an overwhelming numbers, so he had to know what was coming. And he had written a date and a note next to a particular prayer. So my father, it was one of my favorite things that he would talk about, because what he would talk about was in the last moments of this young man's life, he reached for hope. Not that he might live, because it was clear, and it was clear from the note he wrote that he knew he wasn't going to live. He had hope for what was to come. So even in the moment where, and death was not going to come in an easy way either, and yet he still was looking to hope, and that there was something better to come. Also, by the way, 7 years ago, I was told I had terminal cancer. I was given a year to live, and they said I had a 1% chance, and I was not expecting them to say that at all. And my son, who was 21 at the time, was sitting next to me, and I could barely listen. And when we walked out of there, my son took one look at me and said, "You weren't listening. They said there was hope." And I immediately calmed down, because I thought, man, if you heard hope in that. And so I just decided that I was going to be okay with whatever happens. And we're not going to turn this into some kind of sad sack. And through who knows why I survived, they actually studied me at Northwestern, because they couldn't figure out at the time why I suddenly went into remission and stayed there. And my son now refers to me as a 1%er, which I hope comes true someday. But because, he's referring to the wealthiest among us are called 1%ers.
Well, you are wealthy. You are the wealthiest among us.
I am
Think
wealthy.
about
You're
it.
absolutely right. You're absolutely right. And what it taught me, though, was just do your thing, be happy with it, I chose to be happy this entire time. And I was. I look back on that time frame and I marvel that it doesn't seem like this long, tragic thing that happened, and instead it just seems like this kind of cool journey, because strangers showed up at my door with casseroles, and people helped me do the laundry, and I was surrounded by community. It seems like there's a thing going on here. where I'm just learning that it's not about what you own and it's not about the awards you get. It's really about how you've shown up for the people around you. That's the whole ball game.
And what we think is important in the big picture, it really is. And I had this conversation with a friend of mine the other day. What we put value on is not really that valuable in the big picture. And I was serious when I said you are among the 1%ers. You are the wealthiest person in the room because you have something that those that have immense wealth don't. You had hope. You can't buy
I know
that.
we had hope. I had a very wise person say to me that I needed to get rid of hope because that was a hole where belief needed to be, and that I needed to stop saying I hope and switch over to I believe. And I totally get it because you can feel it when you say it, the difference between I hope this happens and I believe this will happen. So you stand in belief.
But the hope comes first.
The hope comes first. That's right. And you start from where you are. You're absolutely right. You start from where you are. And these days, I swim out to where I know I can't do it alone. And so I purposely take on things that I know I want to do, but I know it's going to be a ride. And I do it because that's going to create vulnerability for me, and it's going to make me stretch. You know, at some point, this life will end. And the cool thing was when they still thought that I was going pretty quickly, I had the opportunity to kind of look around. It's amazing how you calm down. And I realized that I hadn't done everything I wanted to, but I was on the path I wanted to be on, and I was okay with it. So I'm just going to do everything that I possibly can, love the people around me, and have a good time. And that's it. And I hope that if people read the series, and I hope people do read it. Let's say I believe people will read it. There you go. And that they have a good, there you go. I hope they have a good time and really like these people and root for them. And also that, you feel that I loved DC Comics as a kid because those were the comics that women and children first, they never harmed another human being. And that was kind of a code among all of the superheroes. And they had honor and integrity, and you rooted for them. You wanted it to turn out well. And I guess that's always kind of a thing with me still.
Well, with your series, from what I can gather, all of that dynamic is in that series.
Right.
And from what I can gather,
Absolutely.
your character has to come to terms with, am I going to be happy at the state that I am in, or am I going to throw up my hands and wail and moan and groan and bitch and gripe and complain and be miserable?
Yes. And am I going to forgive those around me who weren't as forthcoming maybe as they could have been? And am I going to believe so much in everyone around me that we can actually change something? Can I do that? Can I let go of things are so bad, I don't know, and just do it?
And we could also say on the backside of that statement that the change begins from within.
Absolutely.
Because we can't change the world, we can't change other people, we can't even change their attitude. All we can do is change how we feel about things.
Yeah, and I've actually watched when I've come to peace with something and I'm not trying to change your mind and you're okay as you are, others around start to change because you create a safe environment for them to see that you're not out to beat them over the head with your opinion. You've just found this place of peace, and it just seems to create a safe place for others to join you. So it really is a weird wave that rolls out.
And they don't have to feel like they're on guard, that they're going to rip their throat out or demean them because they think differently or act differently. It's you come to a meeting of the minds, maybe, is a good word.
Well, I think it's another way to say it, too, is you start to say, we're together, but we're different, and that's okay. Instead of, I'm right, you're wrong.
And it's, can you think of how boring our society would be if we all thought, felt, looked, and acted the same?
Right. Yeah. It's a lot of fun to get to know what somebody else is doing. And even when I don't necessarily want to do it myself, it's still kind of fun to hear about what somebody else is doing. It's just like, that's why I like reading. I read a lot of fun books I don't necessarily want to do, but I had an awfully good time reading them.
And you live vicariously through the books.
And you live vicariously through the books. That's right. And the same thing with a writer, though, too. We get to live vicariously through these stories we come up with. We don't necessarily want to be involved in a conspiracy ourselves.
Oh, yes, we do.
Or taste,
sometimes
or almost run off a bridge. Yes.
My mother, bless her heart, she's an invalid now. She's 87. She can't get out. So she travels the world through her books.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've heard people speak who really were afraid that they were unique, that nobody else was like them. And through books, they learned that wasn't the case at all, and it changed everything for them. Books are so powerful. They said that the invention of the printing press was the most important invention of the last millennia, because instead of, it used to be that you had a king who would pass out the information, so you didn't know anything other than what this one person said. And all of a sudden there's a printing press, and you could disseminate information, and everything changed. Thomas Jefferson said he'd rather have a free press than a free government. And I understand what he was saying was, as long as people get the chance to decide for themselves because they have all the facts, we have a shot.
And that is so true. Because,
yes.
and think about this too, Martha. The printing press was invented by a dreamer.
Oh, yeah. Yep. And democracy was invented by dreamers as well. There's a theme of what is democracy worth throughout the series as well, because it always fascinated me. I don't know that anybody really thinks about it, but when these people got together and said, we're going to give one vote, one man, and we're going to not have a king and not have an emperor, nobody had ever tried this before. And you didn't even have to be a landowner in order to vote. And the rest of the world thought they were nuts. And so they were actually, and this is before there was a phone, before there was an automobile. So they're having to spread this idea across a large territory by horse. And they're going to battle the biggest government that existed in order to do it. And they're not doing it for themselves. They're going to actually do this so that others can benefit. And Benjamin Franklin's the one who started libraries, so he's going to make sure that the information is disseminated. That's a giant dream. That's an amazing dream. And go ahead.
Well, I was just going to caveat that with, not only was it a dream, but they were visionaries because they saw it not for just themselves, but for the future generations.
Right. And so to risk literally their lives, their fortunes, because if you didn't have money in those days, it was going to be a very miserable life. They still had debtor's prison. So if you're willing to risk everything in order to help the guy next to them have the opportunity as well for something that's never been tried before, that is the most amazing kind of visionary and dreaming. And the printing press kind of started it, and democracy to me is like the inevitable outcome. And, democracy, we fight a lot amongst each other, and we argue, and we demand to be right, and then somehow we reset ourselves and get up and try again. And we have roads that work. We have sewer systems that work. We have water that you can drink. And not every country can say that. It's amazing what we've done.
And we can be heard without fear of reprisal because of the dreamers before us that said, yes, every man's voice can be heard. It is his inalienable right to be heard.
Yes, and we can congregate. A lot of countries, the way they keep people from taking down the head tyrant is because they don't allow them to congregate. We can come together in groups and have opinions that nobody else agrees with, and so be it. And it makes for a lively time sometimes, but that's democracy. And, so the democracy and community and learning to work with others in a large conspiracy is what I was playing with. And it's all starts with these people in a family, and this woman at the center of it. And she has this loving husband, and they're both lawyers, and then it grows outward from there.
I think you've hit on something, my friend.
I think so, too. I know I'm the author of it. It's like bragging about your own children. But I still say, I think I have as well. And it's one long, epic story.
Because what you've done is you've brought together a common, and I don't mean that in a bad way, but an everyday person, and put them in this setting that is almost an impossible setting to overcome. And you have the twist and the turns that goes with all the conspiracy theories, and you put her on this journey. She has to do several things. Like you say, she has to learn to trust those that she might not need to or want to trust. She has to let go of grudges in order to move forward, and she has to know whether or not she is going to find her own happiness within, regardless of what's going on around her, so she can continue to move forward. And while somebody's shooting at her, so there's that, too. So that makes it fun. Oh, just a minor detail. I like the way you threw that in. So, ladies and gentlemen, I'm telling you, I'm going to get this series because she's sucked me in from hello almost. No, y'all can't go now. You got to wait till the show's over because you're going to miss something if you do. It's 6 books, right? It's 6 books, that's right. And you read them in order because it's going to be a story that unfolds, and you're not going to see it coming. A lot of people have already read it, so I know that's true. And not only that, ladies and gentlemen, but if you've ever read R.R. Martin's book, his Game of Thrones books, his books don't end, and neither does Martha's, because one story leads to another story, leads to another story. So you have to read them in order, and you can't stop reading them once you start reading them, because if you do, then you won't know what happens next, and that's the way it's supposed to be. Right. Now, and you don't know what's coming. And you don't know what's coming, which is even more traumatic. You'll be up all night reading, so just be prepared. Don't start it on the night you have to go to work the next day, unless you like to stay up all night. You also wrote The Bower Christmas. Right. Yes, and there'll actually be another short story that goes to The Bower Christmas is a short story about a favorite couple from the Wallace Jones series. I can't say anything about it, but if you've read any of the Wallace Jones books, you'll know why it's bittersweet that you get an extra short story about that couple. And then I have another short story I'm about to put out that is an early origin story for some of the older characters in the Wallace Jones series, how it all started for them. What about Traitor's Revenge? The Traitor's Revenge is book 2. So it's the List Conspiracy, then the Traitor's Revenge, then the Keeper Returns, then the Circle Rises, then the Watchers Revolt, and then the Butterfly Effect. So there you go, ladies. That's all 6 of them. That's the thriller series. Now, and there's one short story. If you read at least 3 or 4 of the books, then go back and read The Bower's Christmas, just because it's bittersweet and, it'll pull at your heartstrings a little. Uh-oh. There you go. Let me ask you this. I'm not going to say anything else. When is your next book coming out?
So I'm collaborating with Michael Anderle, who has been very successful in doing a universe, but we're creating a brand new universe. And I'm taking a right turn because he asked me to, and I thought, what fun. And we're doing urban fantasy. And I'm bringing my style of writing to it and his style. And we've created this new universe called Orsarin, and that will be out in July, the first, and we'll bring them out kind of rapidly at first. And we're having so much fun because Michael wanted to do something. He invented the Cartharian Gambit series that now has 15 authors who write in this universe. And
wow.
So we wanted to do it. I know, and it's very successful. And he wanted to do it again, and I'm co-creating with him. But we're making the website a destination. So we've had artists doing pieces that aren't for the covers, that will only be on the website to illustrate what's in the books. We already have 4 authors who will be joining us in the universe right after us. And we're looking for music to add to the website as well. So it's called The Prophecies of Orsarin. And I am having so much fun.
Can I give you a name of someone?
Oh, absolutely.
For the music?
Yeah.
His name is Dan.
Absolutely. Sure.
His name is Dan Hollyfield. He is on my friends list. Okay. And he creates music that will just blow you away.
Awesome. Well, that's awesome. That's how we have found artists who are really blowing me away because somebody said, hey, you should check out. And so that's how we found Fat Puppy, who is doing the covers for us. Someone recommended them. And then we found Andreas Roca, who speaks 4 languages, who is doing epic battle scene paintings for us that will be on the website. So I've gone from doing the 6-book epic thriller series to an entire universe with a lot of other people, and I'm having the time of my life.
Well, check out Dan. If you will go on my archives and Blog Talk Radio and
sure.
pull up the first Sunday night Rockin' the Chain, his music
okay.
is one of the musicians that I highlighted that night.
Okay. Definitely.
And he is
I've written it down.
Amazing. Yeah, and get in contact with him because his music is just, I can't describe it. It is just
okay, and I will tell him you sent me in his direction.
Absolutely. Now, I don't know. I want you to come back because I want to bring you back. Like I think I've got an open in September. I'll look when we get off the phone here.
Okay.
And see if Michael will come back with you, and we'll talk about this new urban fantasy.
Absolutely.
Great. That would be perfect.
We would love to. Yes, and we can't wait to introduce people to the Orsarin universe. And you will enjoy this because we took history and kind of bent it using an alternative history that some people believe actually happened. And we've been having quite a lot of fun with it and introduced magic. And I really think we're on to something. So Michael Anderle and I would love to come back and talk about, by September, we'll probably also have a couple books out by a couple other authors in this universe. So readers will get the chance to really explore a world from different angles, different stories, all based on this one. And the theme of this series is, Can You Handle the Truth? So much fun.
Oh. Well, as soon as we close the show and I get off of here, I'll check my calendar and I'll send you a couple of dates and get you to get with Michael and see if those are whichever dates are good for both of you. And I'll bring y'all back.
Absolutely.
And we'll spend the whole show talking about this because I'm already fascinated.
It will blow your mind what we've been doing to create a new kind of way of bringing artists together and authors and musicians to create literally an entire universe where a lot of talented authors will be taking different parts of the story and it all interconnects in some way. It's so much fun. And it's called The Prophecies of Orsarin, Oriceran. And in July, you'll see it out on Amazon and in Kindle Unlimited.
Sweet. Well, now we really are going to run out of time. And before we run out of time, tell these wonderful folks where you can be found, because I know you're going to start getting a lot of hits.
Thank you. You can find the entire series, the Wallace Jones series, on Amazon and on Kindle Unlimited, and you can find out more about me at marthacarr.com. You can find out more about my background and how to get to be part of the newsletter, because we will be offering specials when the books start coming out for people in the newsletter, and you will get the news first. And the Wallace Jones series, let me know what you think of it. I love hearing from readers. That's the best part. And
yeah.
I answer everybody.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, you heard it first here. I'm going to bring Martha and Michael back, and hopefully in September, and we'll get to listen about the whole new urban fantasy thing. Go and get her works. I'm telling you, I know I'm going to. Now, tomorrow night, my guest will be Ronnie Allen. I can't wait to talk to her. She is very, very interesting. And we will be live tomorrow night at 8 o'clock Eastern Daylight Time, just like we are tonight. Saturday night, I'm going to take the night off, and then we'll be back on Wednesday night with a whole new slew of guests. And as you all know, when I get ready to close the show, and Martha, don't hang up when the show goes dark, because I got some instructions for you. But before that, I want to thank you so very much for spending an hour with me. I've learned a lot. I've had a ball. This hour went by way too fast.
It did. It really did. It's been a lot of fun, and this was great. I love chatting with you.
Thank you, darling. Now, ladies and gentlemen, if we've talked about dreams, we've talked about being happy, we've talked about visionaries, and you all know, those of you who've listened to the show from the beginning, you understand that I am a visionary, I am a dreamer. I believe in making dreams happen. I believe in helping other people make their dreams happen, because without dreams, we would still be living in caves and dragging women by their hair. So what I say is this. If you want to achieve success, stop asking permission. If you want to be special, don't just feel special, be special. And if you remember this, your smile is your logo. Your personality is your business card. How you leave others feeling after having an experience with you, ladies and gentlemen, becomes your trademark. I see that every day of the world. And I hope and pray and believe that every guest that leaves from this show has my trademark on a positive note. I hope when I leave you with this show that you have my trademark, which is on a positive note, because I believe that we are all successful, and I believe with all of my heart that we are responsible for other success. That is what helps make us successful. So if you have a child, a spouse, a significant other, or even yourself, or a friend, and y'all have a dream, help each other to make that dream real. Help each other to be successful. And whatever you do, ladies and gentlemen, do not deny that child his dream. Because even if he doesn't fulfill the specific dream, he did not fail. He succeeded because he went out and tried. He who does nothing fails. He who tries succeeds, because by trying that dream may lead to another dream, which is where he's really supposed to be. I believe that with all of my heart. Little did Martha know that when she sold those tourist books at the White House, that she would learn so much and be where she is today. Little did Martha know that she would write for the Washington Post or USA Today, which are all prestigious publications. So, ladies and gentlemen,
right.
It's not the destination, it's the journey. And it's the happiness that we find within. That is what we want to leave for the future. So encourage your children to fulfill their dreams, whatever that dream is, because you will be successful just like they will be successful. So remember this, tomorrow night, 8 o'clock Eastern Daylight Time, be here with me and my guest, Ronnie Allen. We will be bringing Martha back, I promise, because now she's got my interest peaked. I can't wait to spend a whole hour with her and Michael. It'll be so much fun. So be prepared to come back and listen to Martha as she joins us again. And until tomorrow night, be happy. Remember, it comes from within. Love yourself, love each other, and make your dreams real, because you are the only one that can. Do not allow anyone to steal your dream. Don't give them permission. So until then, this is Yvonne Mason with Off the Chain. We say good night. Just hang on a minute, Martha.
Okay.
Okay. We're offline. Thank you. Anything we say now will go up into the archives, so it will be heard. But I wanted to let you know that when this show goes up into archives, I will post it on the Facebook page, and I'm going to tag you in it. And then I want you to take it and use it wherever you want to use it to promote yourself. You're welcome. And it gets better than that. Tomorrow, when I put this show up on all the podcasts, I put it up on Podcast Garden, Spreaker, Mixcloud, and SoundCloud. I will tag you. I will post the links up on my page and tag you. So you've got 6 different places that I will tag you on, so you can use that. It also goes up on iTunes. It goes up on Stitcher. It goes up on FM.com, TuneIn Radio, and YouTube. So you will be heard in over 63 countries.
Wow.
Yes.
Well,
that was something
I'm thrilled. I had a blast regardless, but that makes it all the sweeter.
Well, it is my gift to you, my dear friend. Because
I look forward to. Yeah. Go ahead.
It makes me happy to see y'all succeed.
Thank you. And I'm really thrilled to hear how well your podcast is doing, and I look forward to us coming back together and talking about how much better yours is doing and how much better this is doing. It's going to be so much fun to just watch us both grow and grow and grow.
It is. And I feel very confident. I believe that before the end of the year, this show will reach 20,000 listeners, including all the podcasts.
That is cool.
And it's all because of y'all.
I believe you're absolutely right. I think that is so cool. And I think what Michael and I are doing is going to become the wave of the future, and it's going to replace traditional publishing.
I don't doubt it a bit. And the thing is, Martha, is we as indie authors, we have the luxury of exploring the impossible.
Yes. He's found a way for indie authors to take the best of traditional publishing and the best of indie and combine it.
Exactly. Oh, this is going to be
cool.
fun. This is going to be so much fun. So, my dear, I will get off from here, and I will send you some dates and get with Michael, and then let me know. I'll hold those dates open until I get a confirmation from you of which date you guys want.
Okay.
And we will just have a blast.
We will, yeah, and we'll be able to talk about. So this will be visual as well as reading. I mean, there'll be by the time we talk in September, there will be so much for the readers to go and explore.
Exactly. So it's perfect timing.
Yeah, and I'll check out Dan Hollyfield too.
Okay, and I am so glad that you brought it up, because now we've teased the audience. They're going to be bugging me, going, "When are you putting them on? When are you putting them on?" Just be patient, people. So again, thank you, my dear, for spending time with me. You are an amazing, amazing person.
Thank you. Right back at you. It was really a joy. It was really a lot of fun, and it absolutely flew by. So I'm looking forward to us all getting together again. And I know when it's you, Michael, and me, it's going to fly by even faster.
Yeah, I'll have to bring you back, and this is what I do. I like bringing my guests back because they offer more and more every time they come back. And Johnny Carson taught me that many, many years ago. He would bring his guests back, and the audience and the TV audience would know when that guest were coming, and they would stay up late to see what that guest was bringing back to the table. So, yeah, he taught me a lot.
Yeah, and you do the same thing he does. The people he brought back, you felt like they were his friends, and it was fun it was like you were in on something, and that's what it felt like here too. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, okay, I'm gonna sit on the edge of my seat because I know she's got something to say, but she's not saying it. When is she gonna say it? And I do that purposely because it makes the audience pay attention because they're afraid they're gonna miss something. And it keeps them engaged in the show.
Right. And, they're going to love this new series. And it means that with all the authors who will be joining us, you get involved with the series and you're going to be able to read, forever. But it's not one author kind of trying to get something out there. You're going to get a taste. It's slightly different. Oh, it's going to just be so much fun.
Oh, I can't wait. Okay, we're going to leave it with there, and people can just salivate from now until September.
That's right.
All right, my darling, thank you so much.
All right,
I appreciate
thank you very much.
You're welcome, honey. I'll be talking to
you as well. Thank you.
All right, honey. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Napa know-how.
The Napa guy knows not to judge a man by his car's multicolored paint job or absence of modern gadgetry. Who cares if it's technically old enough to vote and the windows are powered by the strength of your left arm? Your monthly payment is zero, and it'll stay that way. Because with over 500,000 parts and a little Napa know-how, you can keep anything on the road. She may not be pretty, but she's all yours. That's Napa know-how.
Napa know-how.